Hello and welcome to Paul Rogers Gaming. Over the past couple of weeks, I've been absolutely falling in love with this game, and I want to break down some things I wish I would have known early on when I was first getting things started. This is coming from the perspective of someone who just picked up the game 2 weeks ago, and I'm in no way an expert on the game. This game is deep, and I'm not an expert yet, but I have done enough research to where I know I can save you time as you begin building out your islands to make the most food and gold possible. I'll also dive into some arena and dungeon tips as well after we cover gold and food basics. Let's hop right in. Now, the first thing I want to talk about are gold and food because they're going to be in high demand as you're starting out. You're going to want to use the gold to level up your habitats and buildings, and you're going to need the food to get your monsters leveled up and strong. Both money and gold are easy to use up, as you probably know. Let's talk about gold first, though. Gold is more flexible than food. While food is used to level up monsters and occasionally upgrade habitats, gold is used for buying and upgrading just about everything in the game. So, when you're starting out, getting your gold production up and running is very important. The fastest way to do that is pandakin farming. Now, I did extensive research on monster gold production, like a scary amount of research. I looked at all the habitats and all the breedable monsters in the early game and came to this conclusion, and you've probably seen videos about this elsewhere. For your economy, the best use of your time in the early game is building as many nature habitats as possible and then putting pandakins in them. As you can see on my account right now, I still have them, lots of them, and I will likely have them for a good while longer. So, why nature habitats? Well, nature habitats are absurdly superior to fire, thunder, rock, and water habitats, since nature habitats hold more max gold. Max gold, it comes into play if you're away from the game for a while, since that caps how much you can earn until you log back in and collect the gold. I won't get too much into the weeds on this, but nature habitats can hold over 3 times the max gold of a fire habitat at the same level. If that sounds crazy, that's because it is. A level 3 nature habitat has the same max gold as a fully leveled fire habitat at level 8. As you can see here on my main account, I limited myself to 1 fire habitat because they're very inefficient. You only really need 1, and I want to make really good use of my available island tiles. Also, here's a quick habitat tier list if you want to clip it and use it for later use when you're thinking about your gold production. But really the main takeaway here is that nature will be your best habitat until you get later in the game when you get legendary and mystic habitats. Here's a quick tip too. If you have an empty habitat with no creatures in it, you can put it in storage. So don't worry about being at the max number of habitats. You can always clear one and make more room. You might also be asking, why pandakins? Why is everybody obsessed with those? Well, here's why. Pandas are bred ridiculously fast using a Treezard and a Firesaur. Treezard and Firesaur themselves are available very early game. I think they're the first monsters. Also, pandas occupy the best habitat in the game, nature. Pandas also are high-earning rare monsters. Now, when I say high-earning, what I mean is that for each monster rarity, there are high earners and there are low earners, with very few exceptions. So, what pandas will be making as a high-earning rare is going to be more than all monsters until you get to epics that are high-earning themselves. Epics take like 3-4 days to have breed and hatch. So you're not going to want to wait that long for something that you want to mass breed to make the most money possible. So pandakins are the logical option here. Now, get as many pandakins as possible, and as far as leveling them up, level them up one at a time so that you get the best return for your food invested in them. For example, if all of your pandas are level 5, you're going to want to level up 1 to 6, and then a different 1 to 6, and then level them up until they're all level 6. Because what's going to happen is early on, the return for your food as far as gold per minute is going to be so nice. But as they get to higher levels, the returns do diminish. And then from there, as workers become more available, keep upgrading your nature habitats and then fill them with more pandas. And now that you have good fundamentals about how to start your panda economy, let's talk about food. First of all, don't waste food. When I'm in multiplayer battles, occasionally I'll see a Treezard or a Mersnake at a really high level and think to myself, what is that player doing? First off, economically, it's terrible for your account to spend food leveling up a low-earning common monster. That same amount of food could be used to get a better return if given to an uncommon or better monster. A basic good rule of thumb is Take your common monsters that come with each habitat, level them up to breeding age, and then leave them there. Their main purpose is for you to breed better monsters with them. It's not just bad to level up a common monster, though, economically. It's bad for other reasons, too. The hard truth of the matter is that most of your common and even uncommon monsters are not going to provide you any combat value in the weeks to come. They are outclassed very early in the game. The base stats of monsters are influenced by rarity, level, and of course the specific kind of monster that they are. Attack type monsters will have more strength and speed, whereas a tank monster will have more health. Rarity, though, is more influential than level. So, when you get your first epic, and especially when you get your first legendary, you'll quickly realize that the lower rarity monsters cannot be placed on your attack teams because they are totally underpowered. So when you boil it all down, really what you want to go for is only rank your uncommons and rares that are going to earn you good money, and those uncommons and rares will probably give you some combat value early game. Then later on, when you're getting your first epics and legendaries, save your food and your resources so that you can get them up to max level as quickly as possible, because they're ultimately going to be what carries you in things like arena and multiplayer. And while we're on the idea of saving food for high rarity monsters, let's also talk about overdoing farming, because that is a real danger early on in the game. First off, you should definitely upgrade your farms to level 2. Absolutely. At level 2, the food production is so much better. The cost increases aren't awful, except in the case of snow peas, which we'll talk about in a second. Now, overdoing farming for me looked like this. I reached a point around level 20 where gold became just as scarce as food, and if you have no money, you can't grow the food you need for your monsters, so your progression in the game starts to slow down dramatically. This starts to become an issue when building upgrades start getting really expensive, and you're tempted to grow snow peas in your level 2 farms at the same time. Word of advice: do not grow snow peas until your gold production is strong enough to handle it. Snow peas cost a whopping 75,000 gold for 3,000 food. And that is a lot of food early game, I will admit. But snow peas will have you paying 25 gold for every unit of food, while peanuts have you paying just 15 gold per food. Peanuts are just more money efficient. And if you really are in a bind, red tiger nuts are also more efficient at 12.5 gold per food unit. If your economy is weak, basically don't rush to level up your farms. Get your gold production in place first and then upgrade your farms. An easy way to check the health of your gold production is when you log in, make a note of how much gold you have, harvest all of your gold and all of your food, and then plant your food again. Now check how much gold you have. If you have less gold than when you started, that means that your food production is slowly chipping away at your wealth. You're going to have to watch out for that if there's an expensive upgrade coming up. Okay, now that we talked about food and gold, let's talk about achievements and challenges, because those will be extra ways that you can earn the food and the gold that you need. Complete achievements and challenges whenever you can, basically. There are tons of challenges in the game, so be sure to check them. The scroll icon on the left side of your screen, pretty much for the first few days you play the game, you can just keep hitting that scroll icon and completing the challenges that it lists out for you, and you'll be in pretty good shape. The challenges just keep getting better and better, and at some points I've gotten like gems and tons of money and food from them, so always keep them in mind. To wrap this video up, I want to touch on a few other important things other than the gold and the food production. The first off being gems. Don't spend your gems. Most gem purchases are not worthwhile early game. Spending gems on food is unwise because the early game monsters will be unhelpful. Doesn't really matter so much that you feed them up. Also, spending gems on gold isn't so good. It probably is even worse since your economy will take care of gold production once it's up and running. Now, buying monsters with gems tends to be very expensive too, and just not worth it, especially if they're breedable. What I have spent gems on so far is my hatchery upgrade, getting it to level 4, and I bought an additional breeding tree, since breeding takes a really long time as you start to breed those epics and legendaries that you want. And the final thing that I've spent gems on is worker huts. Worker huts are really important. I'm rocking 3 right now, and that so far has been good enough for me. Of the 3 things that I've spent gems on, I think I would say the hatchery is the most important, but it's ultimately up to you, and all three will speed up the rate that you can build out your islands. Another thing, do not rush Arena. There's no reason to rush Arena. It's a good source of XP in particular, but leveling up faster isn't necessarily a good thing since certain tasks get harder based on your level. Don't make any big decisions in order to complete a certain level. Eventually your monsters will grow and get so strong they'll be able to roll any level. What you can do is if you feel like level grinding a little, you can redo older missions so that you get little bits of XP for the team. You can run them back at 4 times speed with auto combat on, and you're basically going to save yourself a little bit of food if you do that. Also, it's good to know that there's a small chance of getting gems on wheel spins, so be sure to go back, redo missions so that you get the full 3 stars and get that chance to get gems. I also wanted to briefly mention dungeons. Basically, at the beginning, dungeons are going to feel impossible. That's totally normal. Don't feel bad about dungeons being extremely difficult. Some food and token dungeons will be easy at the start, but then get ridiculously hard. That's normal. It seems to me, once you get a few legendary and mystic monsters, these dungeons become so much easier that you can just roll right through them. But since you don't have any legendaries and mystics at the start, some of the dungeons are just impossible. Also, some dungeons have monster type or book requirements, and that's the kind of thing you're not going to be able to do anything about until you're a later level. And the last thing I'm going to touch on is multiplayer. Don't take multiplayer rank too seriously. There are lots of high level players that are in lower leagues, so if you always feel outmatched or like you're getting rolled, that's also very normal. Keep in mind that you get around double the points for an attack win as you do for an attack loss. So if you keep your win rate slightly above 50%, you're going to end up climbing anyway. At the end of the day, it's not even that big of a deal though, since the awards for each league are similar with the higher rank just getting slightly more. Have fun with it and open those multiplayer chests to get extra supplies as well as cells, and those are going to come in handy later. Alright. That's about it for this video. If you made it to the end, be sure to drop a like and comment down below how long you've been playing Monster Legends and how you feel about it so far. I'll catch y'all next time.